During the latter half of the Wii's lifetime, there were 3 big-name RPGs released in Japan. Of course, I'm talking about Xenoblade Chronicles, The Last Story, and Pandora's Tower. Because at the time there wasn't a word on the games being released to North America, a campaign was started called Operation Rainfall, which its main goal was basically to hound Nintendo into getting these games localized to the western regions, which of course came to pass. I mean heck, the effort of Operation Rainfall was even the main inspiration for Operation Moonfall, which, if anyone remembers, was a campaign to get Majora's Mask remade for the 3DS, following Ocarina of Time 3D. So I guess these fan outcries end up working out after all, right? Well, not really, as Reggie Fils-Amie blatantly stated in an interview with Silicon Era regarding the 2 campaigns that these sort of things don't really affect what Nintendo of America does, despite them being aware of it. Yeesh, even when we get what we want, Reggie can still be a bit savage. Though in any case, with many riding on these 3 games to come to North America, they basically became known as the Operation Rainfall trilogy. Though, just to be clear, the name only joins these 3 in the same tent purely because they were Wii JRPGs that came around the same time. They don't really have anything to do with each other otherwise. It's just that referring to them as the Operation Rainfall trilogy is a quick way to put them under the same umbrella. They are their own full standalone titles otherwise. Anyways, the point of this video is to give a quick look back at them and showcase where these big names are now, 5-ish years so later after they've been localized. First off, let's look at Xenoblade Chronicles. Where do you even start with this game? Basic facts out of the way, it was released in June of 2010 in Japan and 2011 in PAL regions, and 2012 in North America. It was developed by Monolith Soft and published by Nintendo. It was released to much critical acclaim to critics and fans alike at the time. I didn't get a chance to play it until a couple years after it came out, only really hearing about the game from YouTube user CJ01, who would talk about the game from time to time. I was aware of it when Operation Rainfall was going on, but I wasn't too interested in JRPGs at the time. I eventually bought it on a whim purely because I wanted to play a new Wii game, and holy fuck was it the best nonchalant decision I ever made. After the events that caused Shulk and Ryan to leave Colony 9, pretty much any free time I had for a long while just went straight into this game. Xenoblade was a GameStop exclusive here in the States. Then there came that whole crap fest of them opening up new copies of the game, selling it at a high price, used, and basically making the thing a rarity. Though I don't believe that lasted too long since I also got mine at a GameStop, but for a pretty fair price, only a couple years after release. Though this is anecdotal evidence, I'm only going off from what I saw. Speaking of which, Xenoblade, along with the other 2 Rainfall games, were fairly niche titles from what I've seen. I mean, yes, it was praised endlessly when it came out, but it seems the people who really knew about it in terms of the general audience were JRPG fans or avid gamers, people who would have been interested in the game anyway. It wasn't until 2014 when you really saw this game become widespread, and I chalked that up to 3 main reasons. 1. That's when Chugged Conroy started his playthrough of the game. You don't really realize the impact Chugged Conroy had on the game until you see that the most viewed videos about Xenoblade Chronicles are his Let's Play videos. The first part of it alone, at this moment, is at over 2 million views. 2. Shulk's inclusion in Smash Bros. 4. Chugged Conroy is one thing, but if your character makes it in Smash Bros., yeah, people are gonna know about it. This point alone probably would have been enough to bring Xenoblade up from its niche status, but there was one more thing. 3. Xenoblade Chronicles 3D. Although the new 3DS port came out in 2015, it was actually first shown at the same time as the new 3DS reveal trailer, which was around mid-2014. So yeah, looked like Nintendo still had plans for this game following its release. The new 3DS port coming out worldwide April of 2015, and even beyond that, Xenoblade was re-released on the Wii U Virtual Console in 2016. And of course, I need to mention the successor to Xenoblade Chronicles, Xenoblade X, which came out in 2015 as well. And of course, at the time of this video, we have...
It's obvious. I'll crush you into oblivion and take Pyra and Mithra to Elysium.
I've had it with you. Who do you think you're doing this for?
I'm doing it for myself. If it helps put smiles on people's faces, helps them live their lives together, then that's my role in this world!
Fools, indeed. The time has come.
Hot damn, there's definitely a spot for the Xenoblade name in the gaming landscape. It's weird to think that this once niche title is now among Nintendo's high namestakes. I say Nintendo since they do own the company Monolith Soft, so these are second-party games. So while Xenoblade was off making a name for itself, let's have a good look at the last story, as following the original release of the last story on the Wii, Mistwalker had since given us
If you're feeling suicidal, you've come to the right place. Because I want to fucking kill myself as well. Fuck you, I hate all of you.
I guess some aspects of life just aren't meant to be enjoyed.
Why the fuck was this on the X-Files? With that depressing opening out of the way, the last story was developed by Mistwalker, published by Exceed, and came out January of 2011 in Japan, and to Western regions in 2012. Mistwalker, in case you weren't aware, is headed by former Final Fantasy producer Hironobu Sakaguchi. He had the idea for the last story after taking into account the feedback received from Mistwalker's other titles, Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey. What resulted was a fairy tale inspired action RPG with some minor tactical elements taking place in a medieval fantasy setting, reminiscent of earlier games of Sakaguchi's past. I'm honestly a real sucker for this kind of setting, not to mention the English voice acting, which this game and the other two Rainfall games had given me a taste for.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah, don't be afraid of creepy eye patch kid. He won't bite.
Thanks, crazy lady!
Crazy lady!
But above all else, I had a real good time with this game. Though I will say it's probably the weakest out of this whole set for reasons I'll get into in a moment, but even then that's hardly saying anything, as the reception for the last story was overall very positive. And I think it was even Exceed's highest selling game, at least for the time. Though my gripes with the game come down to a couple of things. One is the story, ironically enough. It's just very cliched and ends up being predictable on where it's gonna go next. Another is that it's pretty damn short. Most RPGs would generally take around 30 to 40 hours to complete, or even more than that in plenty of cases. The last story would take you around 25 hours at most on an average playthrough, if even that. It's also not terribly difficult. In fact, I would honestly recommend this game as an entry-level RPG for anyone who's not into the genre. It's fun to play, and the story isn't anything too convoluted, so it will make for a nice jumping point. Not to mention, the music was done by Nobuo Uematsu, a name that should definitely sound familiar to Final Fantasy veterans. He did some fantastic work for this title, like always. I just wish there was a little more soundtrack in the game, but great stuff otherwise. As a big fan of this game, it really does sadden me that it never got any sort of follow-up, whether it be a sequel or a prequel, just something to further flesh out this world, especially since most of the game takes place only on Lazarus Island. I'd love to see more of this world, like the mainland or the Empire that gets brought up, and the mercenaries too, like maybe a prequel to showcase how the group came to be formed, to further expand the backstory of these guys. Like Mirania's forest home, or why Dagger and Zoran have such bad blood with each other. More Seren and Lowell banter, that shit was the greatest. Maybe a kind of a second to last story. It's not like stupid RPG titles have been brought up before. And yes, I am aware that the creator had no intentions of following up this game. I know it's all a pipe dream, but I would really want some kind of successor to the last story. Unfortunately, all Mistwalker's been doing after the last story is some iOS game called Terra Battle. I haven't really looked too deeply into that, I'm just holding out for the last story to make a comeback. And then we end off with the final game of this set, Pandora's Tower. It was also the last big Wii title that actually mattered, since, you know, it wasn't just some shovelware game. And holy crap, I could not have asked for a better game to end off a console's generation. I'd easily regard this as the Wii's swan song, since the Wii U had already come onto the scene by the time this game reached North America. It was released in 2011 in Japan, but came out to PAL regions in April of 2012, and then to the States a year later. I had already made a video about my thoughts on the game, so you can look into that if you want to. Just know that I ended up loving this game much more than I thought I would. As for where the name went after its original release, unfortunately, like the last story, not very far. It did at least get a re-release on the Wii U Virtual Console, which to my knowledge the last story did not, but I'd be hard pressed to believe there would be any more beyond this game. If there was, I would lose my shit for sure, but considering the nature of this game, I wouldn't hold out too much for a successor. Overall, it's great to see that the Xenoblade name has been going on strong beyond the first game. I just really wish its Rainfall brethren can join in the glory and become their own series too. Here's to an improbable but still possible Pandora's Tower 2 and second to last story. 2.8 HD Remix Final Chapter Prologue. Head ass.